We start off with 3 things you guys are talking about in the sports world this week. So first things first, Jerry has spoken. So Lorenzo, the Dallas Cowboys preseason has turned into one big distraction fest between Hard Knocks coming into town to tons of uncertainty around their quarterback. America's team is now dealing with a handful of players landing on the injured COVID-19 list, and head honcho Jerry Jones isn't really happy about it. Jones, who's been very outspoken in the past about players jumping on getting vaccinated, recently went on a Dallas radio show and had this to say. Everyone has a right to make their own decisions regarding their health and their body. I believe in that completely. Until your decision as to yourself impacts negatively many others, then the common good takes over. We've got to check the I at the door and go forward with we. So Lorenzo, there are very few, if any, with as much influence in the NFL as Jerry Jones. So I'm curious what you think about him going on the airwaves is going to do, and basically him begging players to stay vaccinated. How do you see that turning out?
Yeah, this is really interesting because you're right, Mac. He's a person that has a lot of sway, not only on his team, obviously, but all over the league. And typically when Jerry asks people, especially players, to do something, they do it. I do have to say, though, that knowing the way Jerry operates, he's probably thinking of the bottom line here. Full stadiums, players available, coaches available. But whatever. If that's what gets people to get the vax, I'm all for it because we still have too many people getting sick and we're still running out of space in hospitals. It's just kind of nuts that Jerry is a voice of reason in all of this.
That brings us on to our next thing. And Lorenzo, I'm really going to want your take on this as a Notre Dame alum. A recent survey showed that the Notre Dame Fighting Irish leprechaun is the 4th most offensive college football mascot in the nation. Now, okay. So we have seen some teams in pro sports recently try to right their wrongs when it comes to their team nicknames and mascots. But as someone who attended the school, I would love to know if you've ever heard of this take or if it's in any way justified. Lorenzo, I want your take.
Yeah, so this is a conversation I think requires a lot of context and nuance. Yeah. A couple things first. I'm Cuban American. I'm a son of immigrants who came to this country in the 60s. So I can't really speak on what it feels like to be Irish Catholic and whether or not this is offensive. My first exposure to elements of the Irish culture really came when I first went to school there. But so many of my classmates were Irish Catholic and Irish American, and I can't ever remember any of them being offended. If anything, I remember them going to Notre Dame was a particular source of pride. With all of that said, I do understand how some of the imagery with a leprechaun and the language of fighting Irish may play on some stereotypes, so I think one potential solution could be for the university to reimagine the mascot in some capacity and perhaps drop the fighting so that they become known as the Notre Dame Irish.
And I don't see any of my Hoosier friends having any problem with that type of a name change. So if it does happen in the future, I think that would be an amazing compromise. And staying on the topic of football, that brings us on to our thing number 3. Was Kyler shortchanged? So the Madden 22 ratings were recently released, and one rating that I do want to bring up is one from Mr. Kyler Murray, quarterback from the Arizona Cardinals. So the internet local to Arizona at least, is up in arms about the 82 overall rating that their quarterback received. Now we know the internet can be a little cranky sometimes, but even Kyler himself was very open and outward about his overall rating last year. He was not happy about it. It was a 77. So do you think that this year's 82 is actually very representative of where he stands at in competition against the other quarterbacks in the league? Because for me, I mean, it's only up from here. It's better than the 77 he had last year, right?
Yeah, but what did Kyler do to them? My man should not be that low. There's no way. I think we first just need to consider his skill set quickly. By no means is he a finished product, and that speed and escapability is great. But I'm going to go on the record and say that he's a better passer than he is a rusher. Here's the thing, though. I think the 82 by itself, it's just an arbitrary number. But when you look that Matt Ryan got an 85, Ryan Tannehill got an 87, I don't know about that. At the very least, put Kyler up with those guys, because I bet if you pulled coaches around the league, almost all of them would want Kyler under center over those two.
Hey sports fans, if you want to watch more sports seriously, be sure to check out these clips right here. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel to see all the great content from us here at USA Today Sports.